We're going to calculate the mean from ungrouped data. Everybody knows how to do that, and there's really no surprises here, but I'm just going to show you one way you can make your life a little easier if you're calculating these by hand. Of course, I would probably turn to a problem like this. I'd probably turn right to a spreadsheet and type these numbers in or copy them in and use a spreadsheet function to calculate the arithmetic average. But I'll show you a little shortcut. As you remember from school that multiplication is simply repeated addition, we're going to break these values out into groups and set up use multiplication to figure out our sum of y. So we're going to get y bar is equal to 0 times 5 plus 1 times 1 plus 2 times 10 plus 3 times 5 plus 4 times 3 plus 5 times 1. And we're going to divide all of that by 25. So let's just look at one of these examples. Why is multiplication repeated addition? Well, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 and so forth is 2 times 10. So let's go ahead and add these numbers up and see what we get. We get 1 plus 20 plus 'and adding this up, we get 35, 45, 46, 47, 48, 53 divided by 25. And let's just go ahead and use our calculator again. 53 divided by 25 is equal to 2.12. So there's our arithmetic average based on these 25 sampled cases from the 2012 GSS. In this example, we're going to calculate the mean from group data. So again, I've taken the age variable from the 2012 GSS. It's grouped into roughly 10-year intervals, and I'm going to show you how to calculate this by hand. And I'm not going to really solve it that way. I'll just kind of set the problem up, and then we're going to move over to a spreadsheet, because anytime we get our data in a tabular form, and there's lots of different kinds of formulas and calculations, a spreadsheet really makes life a bit easier to get the right answer. So looking at this table up here, we see that there are 32 individuals who are somewhere between 18 and 19 years old. Some are 18, some are 19. How do I know how many years old these people are? I need to pick a value to assign to each of these 32 people. And the value I'm going to assign is the category midpoint. And you'll remember we can calculate the category midpoints by calculating the difference between either our apparent values or our true values. So I'm going to call that interval 18.5, and there's 32 people in there. So here's our midpoint. And here's our frequency. And I just worked through my table. So 20 to 29 is going to be 24.5. And there's 299 people there. And 30 to 39 will be 34.5. And there are 389 people there. And I do this repeatedly until I get down to my 84.5 and 98 people. And now what we need to do is multiply these values together. So I need my calculator for this. $18.5 times 32 is equal to 592, 24.5 times 299 is equal to 7,325.5. And so forth and so on. And then we're going to sum that column up, and then we're going to divide that sum by the number of cases. So this is a good time to switch over to a spreadsheet and see how that works. So here we are on a Google Docs spreadsheet. I've gone ahead and put in this graphic so that we can see the numbers that we need to solve this problem for the arithmetic average from group data. I'm going to go ahead and enter the age, the upper and lower apparent limits, and I'm going to put them in separate columns so that they're a little bit easier to work with, and I can calculate the category midpoints. I'm also going to go ahead and enter the frequencies of each of those intervals, and from there I'm then going to build formulas to solve for my midpoints and the multiplication and the rest of the problem. So I'm going to go up here to this first cell and type in 18, and over here I'll type in 19, and then 20, and 29, and so forth. I like to enter these things pretty quickly. Like that. And I'm done. And now I'm just going to read the frequencies out of the table. So there's my raw data that I have to work with. The next step is to go ahead and create a formula to calculate the midpoints of each of these intervals. I only need to do this for one interval, and then I can copy the formula to the other cells. I'm going to use lots of parentheses because I want to ensure that the order of precedence works for me. And I might do this in two steps. Sometimes I like to break my formulas down into small pieces and work from the middle of the formula to the outside. So let's go ahead and see what this formula looks like. I'm going to type in equals, my first parentheses, and take the value in cell B1 and subtract the value in cell A1 from that. I should simply get the difference of 19 minus 18. And there it is, 1. That looks pretty good. I now want to divide this by 2 because I need half the distance between those two numbers. And then I need to add that to the lower apparent limit. So I'm going to go back in here and edit, and take the value in cell A1 plus, and I'll add a few more parentheses here to again make certain that I don't get messed up with my order of precedence of operations. That looks pretty good. 18.5 is the category midpoint, and I'm now going to highlight this cell, and in Windows, Control C, and move down, highlight the range, Control V and paste. There's my category midpoints. My next step is to do the multiplication of the frequency for each interval times the category midpoint. Again, I'll do this with a formula. I type in equals, and I'll take the value in cell C1 times the value in cell D1, 592, and I will copy this. And there are my values. I'm going to open up this. You can see when I move over these edges here and I double click, it makes it the right width. I like this formatted a little bit better, so I'm going to come up here and click on some formats, make it just a hair wider. Okay, I need the sum of these numbers, so I'm going to highlight that column, come all the way over here to this function key, so it's a summation sign, and click on sum and enter, and let's format that. It looks pretty good. And then I also need the sum of these numbers, and I'll just use this function again. We'll round it to 2 decimal places. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and calculate our mean. And our mean will be equal to, I'm going to use another formula. This value divided by that value. That is, it's the sum of all those weighted numbers divided by frequencies. And I think we can round this a little bit. And then I'll format this. And there's our value, 48. So based on this table of information, the age variable has been put into grouped intervals. We can still make an estimate of the arithmetic average by weighting the number of cases, by weighting the midpoint of each interval by the number of cases in that interval, and using that to calculate our average. I've gone ahead and made a frequency distribution of this set of numbers, as we've done in other examples and homeworks, and just to show you what a final spreadsheet might look like and a graphic to go with it that you might put in a report or your homework. Hopefully that's enough for you and gets you through this next homework. As usual, if you have any questions, please let us know and we'll try to answer your questions as soon as we can.